how much of an impact this will have, or versus how realistic it will be, versus like how like the main question is like would they actually go through all this trouble and not do it? That's another one for me.
I'll talk to you about that.
Yeah.
I thought about this meaningfully after I watched it, and I believe it or not, I'd actually heard of that book before. I never read it, but it's free on the internet. So, um, yeah, I've got some thoughts. It should be a decent discussion because I mean, we may be on the same page as far as why they would do this, but if whether they'd actually do it, I don't know. But we'll
Yeah.
talk about.
Yeah, let's do that. So let's go ahead and let's just make this the start point right here.
Okay.
Okay. I'm Chris. This is Reality Shadow Band, and I'm with Chad Elkins of elkinscpa.com. And Chad Elkins also has a YouTube channel, Chad Elkins CPA. And I found out about Chad through Aaron Clary, who Aaron Clary is the name of the YouTube channel. And I really, I wanted to pitch this discussion to him, but he rejected me, and he said he didn't have time for me. It's like okay, so who's the next best? Well, the only other person I would trust to like have an opinion that I already know where you're coming from because I've already watched your material and listened to you talk to Aaron, so I trust where you're coming from. I know where your head's at on these things. I know you're also very conservative about these things as well. So I'm currently in Mexico. You're in Chicago area.
At the moment, we were talking about Texas. I'm actually going to head to Texas in a week. It's getting too cold here, man. And I got my busy season coming up, so I'm going to fly south for the winter.
I feel you.
um,
So I guess we want to discuss this thing I came across, the Great Taking. It's been making rounds, and it's really, I guess, in a nutshell, how I would describe it is it's a series of laws and situations and organizations that have gotten together to create a situation where people who think they own something, a stock and a bond, but it's actually held in this pool that's not actually, and that person who thinks they own that item is actually last in line
yep.
for if as far as like using these as collateral to do like a fractional reserve type banking operation on these assets. They're just loaning them out again and doing these massive pump in these, I guess, what they call derivative markets, where there's these
Yes.
bets on bets. Is this kind of being what we're seeing? And this is all like, and this has all been like turned up a notch because these assets that people are putting their money into are things that have been bailed out. So the
Yes.
things have been bailed out, and then they come back and they get more investment because they know they're not going to lose. So it gets pumped over. Okay, go ahead. Is that kind of
That's actually a pretty good kind of summary of it because it's hard to sort of put it all in a nutshell because there's like moving parts, but you actually did a pretty good job summarizing it. What we have right now with our securities markets and the video I watched at the beginning at least the I forgot his name. He's originally from the UK, and in the UK, it's even based on land there. So people who own land don't really own it. But I mean, this focused on the securities market, and this entire system that we're all under, and I don't mean just in the US, I mean around the entire world. Unfortunately, it's all just essentially one big Ponzi scheme because I mean, it's based on growth, the system, but there's really not any, you can't really grow it anymore. So all they can really do is devalue everything that's in it. Uh, and they use derivatives, like you were just saying, they use derivatives as sort of the mechanism to do it. And so there's really nothing but stagnation now, and all the previous demand drivers like electrification, automobiles, highways, telecommunications, air travel, global warms, population growth, arms race, like all of this have slowed down considerably, except maybe the world wars. But everything has just, none of these things really exist anymore that can be relied on to grow this system. So it just seems like all we can really do is devalue it before the whole thing collapses. Uh, It's an interesting read, or an interesting watch, I should say. It's based on the book, which would also be an interesting read, I'm sure.
Yeah, like so one of the things that stood out to me right away was we have $54 trillion in assets, 54.2 trillion in assets at this Central Counterparty Clearinghouse, the CCP, which is another strange name to
Yeah,
choose.
that clearinghouse. I was reading about that too, and I was like, ooh.
So they got 3.5 billion backing up 54.2 trillion, which is one to 1,000?
Whatever
No,
it is, it's a bad
10,000?
ratio. It's
It's like there's no way. It's just one little flick and it's over.
yeah, it's just um throughout I don't know how old you are, Chris. You don't have to.
54,
Oh,
55.
oh, you're 50. Oh, you're a little over a decade older than I am. So, we've seen, I mean, you and I in our lifetimes, now we were a little young when this first one took place, but we saw the savings and loan crisis in the late 80s. There was the dot-com bust. What was that? The year 2000, 2001. 9/11, of course, the original financial crisis of the 21st century was, of course, in 2008 and 2009. Then you had, of course, the Kung Flu, the pandemic, 3 years ago, where they printed so much money it just poured gasoline on this grease fire, and here we are. And I think that was one of the reasons that who wrote. We should say the name of the guy who wrote the book. I forgot to put
Oh,
it in my notes.
I'll put it in the show notes, but it's
Oh,
right.
okay.
It's where's his name here? Um, Let me
Yeah,
see.
I can't believe I didn't write that down. It's called The Great Taking.
Oh, the Great Taking. I'll put it in the show notes. We can skip
Okay.
over. It doesn't matter. Everybody will know what it is. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
There's a guy, the guy that who ran the hedge funds, discovered all this stuff.
Yeah.
Spent the time going down these rabbit holes, a lot of rabbit holes that he really didn't need to do. Really,
Right.
he
He
didn't
was
have to do this.
older.
But
Yeah.
he actually has a heart. He had a beating heart, and he actually cared about humanity enough to go look down into this stuff. And I've never seen I've heard these kinds of things talked about in like conspiracy circles, but I'd never heard someone who's actually on the inside go this far and this deep and this wide and for this long and find out that it is, as you say, a Ponzi scheme. It is a pure Ponzi scheme, and it's based on a forever expansion. And as long as we have that going on, everything's good. And that's where the military industrial complex comes in, and they're like saying that this money is backed by nothing. Well, it's not. It isn't backed by nothing. It's backed by those 8,000 bases around the 800 8,000 military bases around the world backing. You better use our currency, and if you try and install a central bank and try and compete with it, we will bomb the shit out of you.
I
Like,
mean, there's things like that are attempting to prop it up, but I mean, over the long haul, I just, well, it's kind of what we're talking about, that this just is not a sustainable way that this whole thing has been going. Mm. So yeah, well, I mean, I guess one thing I wanted to ask you, I know you're probably going to be asking the questions, but I mean, I was curious how you got into this, just because I know what you do, and I was just curious.
oh, I
Yeah.
have been so curious about how these systems work since I was a little kid. I've always, since my parents are in the military, both my dad and stepdad were in the military. I moved around every 4 years, so I'd always have to get a new friend group. And after a while, I just became a little more bookish, a little more nerdish, a little bit more
Okay.
internal. And when you're on the outskirts of things, you have a tendency to like question things more and ask questions that normal people that things aren't going well and everything's stable and going along, and you just ask once and that's it. You don't ever bring it up again. But so I started working when I was really young. When I was
Mhm.
really young, I started working when I was 13 years old, and I was getting paid cash doing odd jobs. So I started working for a regular job, and I get my first check. I was like, "What the hell is this? What's all this taxes, FICA? What's all this
It's
FICA
so
stuff?"
much lower. Yep.
And I was like, I just got cut in half. Like I have to
Yep.
work now twice as hard as I thought before I got this paycheck, and I started looking into it. And yeah, I looked up into the IRS and how that all came to be, and even before anybody knew there was a problem anywhere there. So I just went down a lot of those rabbit holes, and got into I had a high tech company for a while. I ran a software company for about 7 years, and I sold it. And I had a lot of time to go do other things. And I became a regional currency officer for the Liberty Dollar, and I helped with that. And I saw what happened, how the government just attacked that, totally destroyed it. And I was like, oh my God, you cannot. You can. This is sacred territory. You cannot fuck with the money. You
Yeah,
cannot fuck
they
with the
don't
money.
like competition.
No, and this is what, so when they talked about, they're still talking about like going to the CBDC. I was like, how the hell are they going to make people go do that? And then I heard about this great taking. I was like, oh, this may be a way to force people, saying we have an existential national security threat from whoever for whatever. And they say, we got to take your stocks and bonds now, just like they did in 1933 when the money was gold. They already had most of it already in vaults anyway, and they're just like, we're just going to take it now, and we're going to give you back, pennies on the dollar. So I think they're going to do that again, just to make the whole. Because you're right, everything's built, everything they already have, everything's structuralized. So they got to like knock it down again, so people can race up the ladder. Is that the whole point again? Is that the idea?
That's in theory, if they would want to actually go through, with this great taking, so to speak. And I put a bunch of notes down here that
Yeah, please feel free to discuss how. Feel free form on it.
I yes, this system is absolutely brutal. It leaves us all completely vulnerable. You and I do not matter. We have absolutely no real way to protect ourselves from this. I mean, short of being a bit of a prepper and accumulating a little bit of silver, some gold, maybe some physical assets that you can barter with, anything that's not money or stocks, because money could be deemed worthless, and stocks we never actually see them. They're just numbers on a screen. Aside
Yeah,
from
that's that
that,
CCP. That's a CP. Is it's just numbers on a screen.
it's just numbers on a screen. Yeah. Actually, just a very, very quick tangent. One of the things I liked most as I was watching that the YouTube video that you had me watch in preparation for this was that I really liked how they were setting us up, like describing this at the beginning. They're like, when you owned back in back up until the early 1970s, when you would buy a share of a company, like it wasn't really computerized. Like your name was on the share, so you had it. It was a coupon, you owned it. But like you said, at sort of at the beginning of this, they had to stop that and just pool everything into one big, lump of whatever. And yeah, it goes through that clearinghouse. And so at least at least at the beginning, it wasn't this way, but it just sort of devolved into it.
I
And
mean, the fact it was a CIA operation, it
yeah,
just says a lot of things. Like there's another level of people who are involved with this, who are
oh
ultra natural, who are ultra national.
yeah,
They don't believe in national borders. It's not a thing for them, or
right.
nationalities even. It seems like it's
Yeah. The elite, the
I don't,
government, shadows.
whoever's managing this over decades, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
those time scales. That's the other thing too. It's like, how can they put this over together? This is like you're not doing this for you. You're doing this for your grandkids. That level of
right.
thing. It's like wow. Yeah. So the 1960s they converted from the paper to electronic. I
To the
heard about
polling, yeah.
stock. I heard about stock certificates as a kid. I think I might have saw one, but it wasn't. It was like, oh no, they keep them safe somewhere else. Like okay, whatever. Um, okay. So this central settlement discipline regime where they move the management from local to international, and it's a centralized ledger. So
Yeah.
it doesn't seem that far of a leap to take the CSDR to do a CDBC.
Yeah. It's it's definitely and yeah, did you happen to recall the part or maybe you wrote down some notes about how whatever mini protections there used to be, from this in recent years, usually concerning bankruptcy and everything, those little remaining threads have all been cut away. Like whatever
2000, yeah,
remained.
that 2005 change in bankruptcy law. Is that what you're talking
Yes.
about? Okay,
Yeah,
please.
that's exactly what I'm talking about.
This is something that you is in your roundhouse. I know. Go ahead.
Well, no, that was pretty much it. Was that, there used to be at least some safeguards, and I mean, and then, the powers that be, so to speak, recognize this. Are like, oh, we haven't gotten 99, we've gotten 99.9% of the control here, but let's just tweak this a little so we get 100. And I thought that was funny. That it used to be that when there were bankruptcies, there were at least some preferred creditors for these that were, normal people, but
What does
that's
that
that's
mean?
gone.
Explain that in really layman's terms, because not all my listeners are going to be financially savvy.
Yeah, I took some good notes on this. Give me 1 second here. But basically, so you know what? Here we go. This is a more recent example. We'll go back, 15, well, 2014 is about 16 years now. Were you, where were you in 2008? Kind of
I had sold my company.
yeah,
I went through a divorce. I just married a stripper, which is a really bad idea. Don't do that.
you married a
By the way,
stripper.
yeah, I married a stripper, Chinese girl, a sweet girl, but alcoholism is a terrible thing for people. Like, don't get involved with alcoholics. Yeah, so I just married the girl, so I was having fun with her.
Okay, well,
I was really,
then
so I was
I
not paying attention at all to anything around me because I was just living off the savings from this company I had sold like 4 years before. So I was living high on the hog.
Well, I'll try to summarize this quick. So if for those that don't really remember, we had our most recent, we'll call that the most recent financial crisis. I mean, really, COVID was the next one, but we'll call it this. What they were doing was derivatives, like we keep talking about derivatives. This was the system, doing itself in again, where like basically bad mortgages that had no hope of being repaid were rolled up into these derivatives, and the long and short of it, I mean, you could do a 3-hour show on that, but just, I'll just skip to the end. The long and short of it was like it all collapsed. Like none of those mortgages could be repaid,
It
and the
was just
housing market just went, the stock market, housing market went that.
a slightly complexified Ponzi scheme.
But oh yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's all Ponzi schemes. But
Okay,
anyway,
that's what I say. That's it. The age of the
yeah,
scam is the de facto. It's you
yeah,
just assume it's a Ponzi until
yeah,
otherwise noted. Yeah, go ahead.
exactly, yeah. And do you remember a major, huge investment bank called Lehman Brothers? Does that name ring a bell?
Yeah, I've heard
So
of them.
Lehman Brothers just absolutely collapsed as this was happening in the fall of 2008. I happened to be working in New York City at the time, so I had a bit of a front row seat to it, which was neat.
Oh, by the way, I had all my money in gold by accident. That's how I
That's
survived through all this whole thing.
well, that's good. um, um, well, anyway, this
That
was
period, I didn't lose anything. I was just like, huh? I don't know what's going on. I knew my
and that was
price of gold was going up. That's all I knew.
that's a happy accident.
Yeah.
Um, Well, so basically, Lehman Brothers was really, I don't want to say the first because Bear Stearns had a problem too, but I'm just talking about Lehman. Basically, they were in collapse because of this. They totally failed, and what happened was J.P. Morgan was having a similar issue. J.P. Morgan Chase, they were in rough shape too because of this. So what they did, this is from that video you had me watch. Like what they did was they took all their clients' assets and used them as collateral without their customers, their clients' permissions. And so they were taken to court over this. And the court said that JP Morgan Chase had the right to do this because they are secured creditors compared to their clients and customers who were unsecured creditors. So
So
they cannot be stopped legally from essentially stealing your money in the event of a collapse. And what that tells us is that there are some that are systematically important, such as banks, and then there's others like you and me and everybody else who is not. So I wanted to use that example to know so that people can understand sort of what we're talking about here. Like when the shit hits the fan, that there is the potential for us to just lose everything because they'll just take it from us and say, well, we're preferred and we're secured and you're not, so we get it first. Is that kind of what you were thinking when you were reading this, or I guess watching the movie and everything?
I couldn't believe it.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't believe it. Other than they've already done this before, and I was like, they're doing it again. I can't believe they're doing it again. How is this even possible? And that's the other thing too is like I'm not asking you for financial advice or giving out financial advice, but what are you telling your clients? Like, do you just put 10% in backstop, 20%? I mean, I know you still have to be in the system in some way, but do you take your money out now? Are we at a top? Do you see any, like, there's just so many questions I have. Like,
One of the good parts about my job is that although I'm a CPA, certified public accountant, and I do taxes, tax planning and everything, one thing I don't do because I'm not licensed for it, and frankly, I don't want to do it, is basically answer that question because you have to be a financial planner or financial advisor, a licensed one, to give that advice. So I'm off the hook as far as that goes. Like whenever I have clients who are like, "What do I do?" I'm like, "Well, I have a wonderful set of financial planner referrals. I could give you someone's name because that's just not a job. It's not a job I want to do because I mean, I don't know what to tell people to do. Like I did have some these are very general ideas, and I actually put down 12 of them. And I'm talking about all encompassing things about life and health and everything that some people could do to maybe protect against a whole systemic collapse where people take everything. And if you wanted me to, I had a few I was going to
I would love
share.
to hear it. And maybe like a percentage, what do you think of how percentage this is likely in the next, say, 5 years, 10 years, something like that, you know?
Okay.
Sometime, some
Um,
arbitrary time frame that you set, and what do you think how possible it is that this.
you know what? I'll start there. And Chris, this is what I was telling you, like backstage. Percentage wise, do I think that a whole systemic collapse will happen at any time in the near future where they're gonna just take it all from us and we're all fucked? Do I think that's going to happen? My answer is absolutely not. They can do this. They have all they would have to do is press a few buttons to ruin all of us. But you know what? I did some thinking about this, after I watched that YouTube film. I did a little research on my own. The conclusion that I reached was that the people that are in a position to confiscate all these financial assets from everybody, I believe that they would have far more to lose than they would ever gain from doing so. So I just don't think it's in their best interest because money for these people is less important than raw power. And I believe that their power would be severely curtailed if they intentionally impoverished the upper middle class demographic, because that constitutes the majority of people whose labor actually keeps the country functioning. Like somebody has to do the work. And if you're going to just steal everybody's money, the work's not going to get done anymore. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, I know, I logically 100%, but we have seen the behavior of these people in the not too recent past, and they don't seem to be acting logically, Chad. That's the thing. That's
You're
the thing.
not wrong.
That's the thing that gets me. It's like, and they're getting a little bit backed in the corner because they feel like they're losing some power some way. That's why I guess they're doing this illegal importation of people that don't ask too many questions and are under threat of being kicked out any moment.
But
Like,
see, yes, 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 they are doing. Here's what I think is actually going to happen. And please disagree with me. Like if
oh,
you
I
or
will.
if you
Just trust me. I don't
disagree,
care.
yeah.
No, no,
No,
I
I
really,
love the
I
discussion.
trust your insights because you worked at the IRS. You see the people inside. You talk to people all the time. I mean, you know the inside how some of this stuff operates because you see. I know you see it. So go ahead.
Well, this is what I think. Like they already own these people, this whoever, they already own an enormous chunk of these financial assets. And so in a sense, they don't really need any more of our money. And I was trying to think of a good analogy that would sort of put this together. And this is the best I could come up with. And then I'll tell you what I think is likely going to happen. It would be like an extremely wealthy guy who just all of a sudden decides to rob, like, his bodyguard, his cook, his butler, his housekeeper who make modest wages just so he can make, take a little bit more money. And then they would all quit in disgust, right? So suddenly the wealthy guy, he gets a little bit more money, but nobody to actually perform the work that he has to rely on. And, if you extend this analogy out onto a societal scale, I just, to me, it seems like the elite can't confiscate all financial assets without screwing each other over in the process. And you're right, they don't always operate on logic, but I think at some point they're going to be like, we do this, there's frankly nobody to run the world. And so Well, I mean, before I tell you what I think will happen, what do you think of that? Is that an analogy that makes sense? Am I too optimistic, or I
We've
don't
just
know?
seen very foolish acts, murderous acts by despots who feel that keeping power is the most important thing. And
Yeah, it's
Stalin,
it's power they want.
Pol
Now keep
Pot,
that in mind.
yes, it's
They want
always the
power.
power. The money thing is just a proxy for the power. It's just I agreed. The money
And,
they
and, and, you know, for me, the power that they love is having people to do everything for them. And I just think if you take everybody's money, nobody's willing to do anything for them. And
well,
this is what I think. This is what I think is going to happen. Okay, and I'm telling you, Chris, I did spend a little bit of time. I just put my head on like, what do I think is going to happen, Chad? This is what I think is going to happen. I think we're going to see a gradual deterioration and reduction of economic and financial well-being that results in more and more people never owning any financial assets such as land and stocks or securities. And it's going to be something that creates like a permanent renter class. And that class is more easily exploited for labor and control by the government and these elites than people who can accumulate these. And I guess the conclusion I reach with this is that there's really no need for them to steal anything from people who don't ever possess it in the first place. And so I feel like we're already seeing this now. We've got rampant inflation, rampant, uh, rampant well, I was going to say immigration, but it's really like illegal immigration. So wages are going down, and the middle class has gotten completely hollowed out. So whatever is going to happen, I think, is already happening. People's standards of living are going to gradually decrease over a period of time. But I just don't think there's going to be one giant steal, within the next 5 or 10 years. And like I said, maybe I have too rosy of an outlook on this, but that was my conclusion after thinking about it.
I mean, that would be the logical way to keep going the way they're going and keep going
Yeah,
as it is, even though it's a little bit rocky and not going as well as they wanted to. The smart move would be don't fuck with it. You have the lever, don't pull the lever. You got a lever. We already
it's
got the lever. If we want to do it, we can, but don't pull the lever. But these people, they have to have it all. They don't know.
yeah.
They
So
don't
what I
know
think
when
what you're saying, Chris, is you're thinking this is going to be more of a foolish, like emotional decision rather than a logical one, and that's what's got you a little bit nervous. And I think that's where we're just going to diverge on this one because I refuse to believe even these crazy ass power hungry, crazy Satan worshipers. I just don't think they're that stupid. They may be kind of reckless, they may be sociopathic, they don't really care about any of us, but I just can't see them being that reckless.
even though
At
they
least from my experience. Yeah.
hundreds of millions in the 20th century.
Now there's probably going to be
For these
some.
exact policies, this exact stuff that we're talking about, just taking everything for everybody and then redistributing it out to their pals and just giving it to people that don't know how to do anything with it, and it crashes the economy and people starve.
I just keep coming back to, you know, they in order to keep their power, they don't really need to do anything so heavy-handed because it's already happening naturally. Like, they've won. They've won for years. I guess, I can't say what's going to happen. Nuclear,
Oh,
there could be nuclear war,
this is
next
opinion.
year, right?
This is all opinion. This is all hey, where is your head at? I know
Yeah.
you're a little bit more you're a little bit more Pollyanna than Aaron. I'm a little darker than Aaron, so he's a little bit more glowing about the future. Just to be quite honest, and I'm a little bit less. I'm a little less glowing, even though he's super pessimistic and he's written books about it. They're awesome. And by the way, the book he wrote about the 2008 crash is awesome, and he
Yeah.
put all this stuff fully. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, the only other thing I was going to say, Chris, was like the one thing I almost forgot to mention is that they can just print money on demand. Like they don't have to steal anything from anybody. They'll just print it, inflate the
That's
hell out of it like they
that's
did on
what's
COVID when they
strange.
were paying people not to work. I
That
mean,
is that is what's so strange though, is why they put all this other crap when they can just turn that printer on.
because, well, they wanted to basically, Chris, I think they did that because they wanted to make it so they could do it whenever they wanted to. I liken it to kind of like, the Cold War. Like the US had nukes, USSR had nukes, the Soviet Union.
Yeah,
It
okay.
was just to have them if they needed them, but they're not actually going to do it, in my opinion.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I could see that. I could see that. I,
And,
go ahead.
last thing, like, can you think of any greater way for stealing wealth than just inflating the hell out of the money? Because I can't.
No, it's the best. It's the best. That's why I was kind of shocked when I came across this because I was like, that strategy is going to work. You don't have to mess with
It's
anything else.
working
That's when I
already.
came across the things like how much effort and time and like energy's been put in to this thing is a little ridiculous. To
It's
already have the lever and already have the thing already set, already done. It's almost like they have to go overboard. It's like they have to go so overboard. I don't understand. They always take, and that's the thing that worries me is they do take it to the limit. They don't know when to stop.
they do. I have to believe that that's just quite literally the nuclear option, and nobody wants that. So they like the power of being able to do it, but I don't think they're ever actually do it. So, like I said, maybe I'm an optimist.
Fair enough. He did say the thing where I was listening to George Gammon talk about this when he did a live stream while he was watching it, so I kind of listened to what he had to say. He says banks create most of the money, not the central bank at this point. It's the commercial banks that are below they're creating. So it's not even the central banks doing it. So that's another thing that pisses off the conspiracy guys. It's like the Federal Reserve kind of doesn't really have a lot of control over this at this point, and there's a lot of currency that's being created outside the country. Outside the country, so it's like this derivatives market is like could be hundreds of trillions of dollars. We have no idea.
Warren Buffett had this great quote, and this is again from that video he had me watch. It was quote, "Weapons of mass financial destruction are called derivatives." He basically characterized them as kind of how we're talking about, like they are here to create this type of financial destruction,
And
and
as
they
long as the
and
number go up, it's okay. As soon as the number
yeah,
go down, everything is nuclear wasteland. Is that how we're?
yeah,
Okay. All
yeah.
right. So I guess I went over all of it. The fact they've done it before, but you don't think they'll do it again. They kind of already got it because everything works as is, and
I
they can just keep going like this if they're sane.
I think, yeah, I think they're gonna. Now, I do think one thing that was mentioned was that, is it set up for a controlled demolition? I want to look at both sides of this. So, there was, of course, the COVID, I'm going to go ahead and call it what it was, which was a really blown out of proportion deal, in my opinion. People have different, thoughts about this, but they're saying that was actually part of this, where they could just print, 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 print. So they think that was the motivation. Do you remember the part from the video where one of the guys predicted that there would be cyber pandemics, like, cyber attacks on the global system? They'll use that as an excuse to, like, take.
Okay, I do have a lot of expertise in that
That's
area.
your background, so
Yeah,
yeah.
I do know a lot about that, and because of the number of zero-day exploits that are available in the kernel of Linux, because it's so old and it's been hacked with and messed with, and yes,
Yeah.
yes, it could
So
be
I
a major
thought,
problem. But the thing about it is, only for the people that are really reliant on the system. That's why it's like having these backstops. Like the gold and silver physical in your hand is a backstop.
yeah.
It's not gonna be going up in value. They're gonna keep that thing suppressed forever, and until when it's not, and then it doesn't matter at that point. Those are backstops. So you gotta have some of that for when these periods of time happen, but also just talking to your neighbors and trying to be a good person is a pretty good idea. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, Chris, I was just gonna say, like, you had asked me earlier. I just on a whim, I made a list of ways. If you're really that worried about this or about some kind of collapse, I had some ideas. Some of them are a little cheesy, but I can just
Oh,
start
I want to
rattling
hear
them
him. I'm
off.
a kind of cheesy person in some ways.
That's cool because I am too. Can ask my girlfriend. Um, so the first one I have, again, these are a little bit cliche, a few of them, but take care of your health, exercise, eat healthy, even if it's a little costs a little bit more, because at the very day, that whole expression, all you have is your health, no matter what kind of bullshit is happening in the world, financial or otherwise, you want to just take care of yourself. So that's one way to protect against this. Two, again, very obvious, stay out of debt and live beneath your means. I mean, this is basic stuff a financial planner will tell you. Uh, Number three, I thought, again, cheesy. Just keep learning things, learn new skills, learn how to fix and build things. You know, just pick up little things like that. It'll be useful.
YouTube is
Another
so
one,
YouTube is so awesome for anything, anything. Don't before you pick
yeah.
up the phone, like watch some YouTube videos. Really.
And that's the thing, it's all on YouTube. Like, it's not like, 30 years ago where what could you do to learn this stuff? Go to the library, it's all on YouTube. And another one I came up with, I have 12, by the way, and this is number four. So interrupt me if these are getting too
Oh
long.
no, this is great. This is great.
This one may be my favorite one. You have to realize that the government at all levels, federal, state, local, will lie to you. The government is not interested in taking care of you, and they will take everything you have if it means they get to stay in power just a little bit longer. And they'll break every single promise that they made to you. And I don't know if you were already, overseas when the whole pandemic hit, in early
That's why I
2020.
left. I was
That's
22
why you left. Like,
September
to me,
20.
that taught me, I already kind of knew these things, Chris, but that just cemented it for me. It's like the government will destroy you, especially in a city like I was living in, where they were very heavy-handed about this thing.
We
They'll take
saw.
your whole business from you. Yeah.
We saw.
Yeah.
I
So
remember.
just know the government's not out to help you. Never is. Um,
Or whatever that thing is now. I don't even know if it's the government. You can really call it the government. Whatever
it's
that
more
is.
like a mafia, I guess, of with a bunch of paid people who really don't do anything, but a select few that run everything. Um, Number five, I think you'll like. I said buy a little bit of gold and silver. I said Bitcoin if you want to. I think that's something you like to do. But realize, this is my qualifier for it, realize that that's just a little bit of insurance and nothing else. Like, don't make that your end all be all. Um, Number six, and again, this is more on the financial planner cap. Stay away from bubbles. It's hard to do that when you've got some friends and relatives that may be getting rich and think you're a fool. But, remember, with bubbles, what goes up comes down
Yeah, we
spectacularly.
talk. That's one of the things in the age of the scam. I'm talking about the mislabeling and the hype cycles.
Yeah.
If you see anything that's like you start to hear a bunch of times and people are making money on, that's a hype cycle starting up, and
Yeah.
just assume you can safely assume it's a Ponzi.
It's really hard, isn't it? Because you get emotional and you're like, oh, I want to hit it big and make money and all this. But I mean,
Yeah, I'm going to
yeah, were
talk
you?
in this series how the scams hook you, how you can be unhookable, and that's what the minimalism series Aaron talks about. Is like getting unhooked from this shit.
So this was about 3 years ago this month, I believe. Do you remember that whole GameStop and AMC thing? Classic example. Like, there were a select few that really did well with that, but most everybody just lost who tried to throw in on that little thing. So yeah. Uh Number seven here, again, I warned you it was cheesy. Realize that relationships are worth far more than things. So, families are worth more than stuff. Again, these are obvious, but I'm a minimalist too, just like Claire. You probably are too, right, Chris? Pretty
I have to
minimalist.
be.
Yeah.
I live in a little one room hotel here in Mexico. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. I really recommend trying to do the minimalist route if you can.
I've always been a fan of it. People
I had
think,
two houses at one time when I had that software company. I had like all kinds of cars, trucks, boats, jacuzzis. I had multiple pools, multiple jacuzzis, all kinds of guns and everything. I got rid of all of it. It was so difficult to get rid of it. Oh my God. But after it's gone, you never want to get it again and it's good. You're good. He's like, okay, I don't need that stuff. If I get something I really want to try out, I'll rent it and then I'll let it go.
well, it's like that old expression, the things that you own end up owning you, which
Oh, yeah.
I heard that in Fight Club. But anyway,
Okay.
for number eight, I just put enjoy life, and you don't have to have a lot of money to do that. So I said that. Number nine, Chris, I'm a failure at this one. I admit I need to fix this. Learn how to shoot safely, and you should own at least one gun, even if you think you'll never touch it. I need to fix that part of my life. I don't know how to do any of
Played
that.
around, got into the firearms yet?
Not yet, but I
Oh
do
my God,
think
they're so fun. Holy shit, Chad.
that is some is
There's
one of my New Year's
so
resolution for
much
2024. I gotta learn to shoot.
fun. So once you learn
Yeah,
the basics and you get kind of good with just at the range a few times, going out into the training camps,
yeah,
like clearing houses and self-defense, holy shit, it's such a rush, dude. It's so much fun. It also makes you
yeah.
realize you do not want to be in a gunfight.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Do not want to
again,
be in a gunfight. You
these are
want
such far-fetched scenarios, end of the world. Like if the world is gonna end, we want to at least know how to shoot.
Yeah, so I've been well trained and I grew up with around guns and stuff like that. So it's totally second nature to me. But yeah, it's super fun. Like it's nothing. I don't know if people make it this scary thing. It's not. It's not. It's very technical. There's lots of really fun, nerdy details, and the culture's awesome for the most part. For the most part, not all of them, but the gun culture is just super, super nice people. So yeah.
Yeah, most of my friends, at least here in Chicago, I tend to have my own little kind of more right-leaning group a little bit. But I mean, yeah, so that I've talked about, I'll probably do some firearm training with them, after my busy season, of course.
It's
But
so much fun, Chad. You should do it. You'll be like hooked. You'll be like all you talk about after this.
I'm saying that's why I thought I'd list these because I need to do this one. And I even do the next one, number 10. I said, be a part of something that's bigger than yourself, whether it be a church, a volunteer organization, just have something, have a group. Don't be a lone wolf. I think that's good advice. Yeah.
For sure.
Number 11, learn how to be self-reliant. It could be something as small as making your own coffee instead of buying it at Starbucks, but just try to become self-reliant. Um, and then the last one I could think of is something you and I are kind of doing right now. Seek out those who have the same mindset, become a valuable member of your network, learn skills that are needed and be there when needed. So, again, that's my 15-minute, I was like, come up with a bunch of things that could protect against something like this, but who knows?
I think those are all things that will improve your life in general, anyways, in
Right.
case
Yeah.
nothing happens. That's one of the things that I have been involved with these movements since the 90s. So, um, there has been a lot of doom and gloom the whole time. But
Yeah.
I've never seen it like this.
You think it's really getting bad, huh?
Because I used to be the only one noticing and talking about it and paying attention to this stuff. Like for years and years and years and years, of using just me and my kooky friends. But the last 3 or 4, I've never seen anything like it. So something's afoot. So those are all really good tips. And I think we're about to wrap it up. Is there anything else you want to add? I don't want to take up too much more of your time.
No, no, that was it. I mean, I did enjoy. I think it's a very interesting topic. I did enjoy the movie that you had me watch. When I get some time, I'm gonna find the book because it is available for free. I know you're gonna link it. Like I'm gonna read that. I get the gist, but I still want to see a little bit more about what he has to say. Yeah, let's just laugh about this. We're all screwed. We've all always been screwed, but at the same time, I think this will be a long play. It's not anything that's going to happen soon. Yeah, I will agree with you that, the last few years have been really crazy with COVID and all the shit going on.
They
I
showed their
don't think
ass. They showed their ass, and
they really did.
they really had it under tap before that. It was barely noticeable. You could like I was thinking, I was like the only one going, "Hey, you seeing this?" And they're like, "What are you talking about?" They're like, but they showed their ass. Like, I was like, "See, this is what I was talking about." They're like, "Oh my God, Chris, what are you talking about?" I was like, "Yeah, that shit's crazy. What do
Well,
we do
Chris, let me
now?
ask you
What
something.
do we do
Let me
now?"
ask you something. They did that, right? But how many people, so you and I think we consider ourselves free thinkers. I think the vast majority of people are just kind of not into this stuff. They're kind
Oh
of like
yeah.
sheep.
So it
Yeah.
went from like 5% of the people being kind of into it to like 20%.
Yeah. And that's still not nearly enough for
No.
like pressure to be held. So I think, yeah, more and more people are waking up each day. That part is true. Um, consider, you know, both of our lives are at least half over. And again, optimistically, I don't have any children. I don't know if it doesn't sound like you have any
Oh, I
children.
do. I do have one
Oh,
son.
you
Yeah.
do? Okay. Well, well, I was gonna say, maybe it'll happen in your kids' generation, but that again, maybe I'm just too optimistic. But I just don't think these reckless, satanic assholes are that crazy. They can't be that dumb. But who knows?
I mean, it's almost to the point where it's almost like they set it up to be so that when this punch happens, people will be like, okay, we've had enough of these guys. That's it. And it'll be like,
Yeah,
and then it'll be like, I don't know if you're religious or not, but I'm not religious in the Christian way, but I do believe there's going to be some sort of event that's going to make people come together.
it could happen. And you know what? That's the other thing, Chris. If something like this did go down, do you realize there's going to be millions, possibly even billions of very pissed off people with weapons that are going to be coming after the ones that did this? And I think the guys at the top know that, and it is not in their best interest to create some type of, let's just say, disharmony like that.
They got bunkers. They think they can live for years inside these things.
Yeah, I'm now they got Zuckerberg and all them got their I guess it's either New Zealand or Australia. They got their bunkers there, but you know
All over
what?
the place, man. You know that.
They can't all escape the wrath of millions of people when you steal their 401ks. So
Well, so Chad, you can get you at elkinscpa.com. Chad Elkins CPA on YouTube. You do taxes and help people with this kind of stuff. Give them guidance. Give them a realistic view of what's going on. And
yeah, I do tax preparation, planning, analysis. Truth be told, one of the reasons this was so fun for me tonight was because this isn't really part of what I get to talk about in my job, you know, because again, I'm not a financial planner, but I don't know, it's kind of fun to talk about these types of subjects because you never know what could happen.
for sure, man. Yeah. And I really appreciate your time and all your efforts on your channel. And yeah, that's about it for right now. I don't want to take up any more of your time. I really appreciate you taking your
No,
looking
I
at.
enjoyed it, man. Thanks for I know Claire and to be fair, Clary would have been a better one to have on here because this is his area. But I'm
Maybe you
glad
can
I was
join
able
him the
to
next time he's on your show with together. Maybe you guys can talk about this.
as soon as you post
Definitely.
this.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to tell you, as soon as you post this up on your channel, I'm going to email it directly to him and I'm going to say, I want you to watch this. And I'll bet you'd watch it.
That'd be awesome because I really think he's really great and he's doing a great service for everyone and to exposing these things. And this is something that he is very aware of how it all works inside. So yeah, I hope he
He
sees it.
is. Just give me a heads up when you got it up and
Okay,
I'll
I will.
circulate it. Yeah.
It'll be a
Mhm.
couple days.
No rush. All
All right. Thank you so much, Chad.
right. You got it. I'll catch you later.
Bye.